Hello and welcome to yet another baseball podcast where we'll talk about the game, the players, the teams, and all things around the diamond. I'm your host, Justin Kohler, and let's step into the batter's box because a new episode is about to get underway. All right, so this is the first ever official episode of yet another baseball podcast. I'm so excited to get going. Again, I'm Justin Kohler. I'm going to be your host for this entire podcast. I am super pumped to get going. With this first episode, it's just going to be a little shorter. It's going to be nice and short and sweet, just to give a little setup for myself, just to let you know about me personally a little bit, the kind of goals for the podcast and what I have in mind, just to give you a good little baseline episode so that if it's not your style, you don't need to commit to every single episode that I'm going to be putting out. So start here, and then from there, go to any episode you can keep up to date. I'm going to try and make it so that you don't need to listen to every single episode to be caught up to date, but of course, some things will branch over and yada, yada, yada. But this episode is just to kind of set everything up. So I'm incredibly excited for this podcast. I've been wanting to make a baseball-based podcast for months, if not years, because baseball is just such a huge, incredible passion in my life. It's just such an amazing sport on every front. I know some people find it boring, and I understand people's opinions on why they find the sport a little boring, but to me, it's so incredibly precise and exciting and dynamic, and it's just such a great sport all around. So to talk a little bit about me, the person who's talking at you in a lot of these episodes going forward, again, my name is Justin. Right now, I'm a broadcast journalist based out of London, Ontario. I have a big history in marketing and social media management, things like photography, videography, all the way to being a marketing director with some dealerships and all that. I've played softball since I was young, since I was a kid, and I still play center field on a regular basis. I did a little bit of pitching work before college, and I've just been obsessed with the sport overall for years. Of course, I watch it regularly. I keep up with all the storylines and all the updates. I play fantasy baseball, more so just because I'm incredibly competitive and like winning, but it's tons of fun. I collect baseball cards, the whole works, the whole 9 yards. I am Canadian, like I said, based out of London, Ontario. So with that, I am a big fan of the Toronto Blue Jays. I got to give a shout out to the Montreal Expos as well, because they were a spectacular, historic team. I wish they were still around, but that's up for debate and discussion at a later time. So yes, I love the Toronto Blue Jays. With that, my all-time favorite baseball player has to be Jose Bautista. His actual productivity numbers aside, he is just such an incredible Canadian icon now. And his bat flip in 2015 still goes down as one of the key sports moments in Canadian history, probably along with the golden goal, Kawhi's buzzer beater in 2019, and probably Terry Fox in general. But I just have a specific love for Jose Bautista. Of course, more lately, I've loved Lourdes Gurriel Jr., George Springer. I love Ronald Acuna and Juan Soto. They just bring such vitality and youth to the game, and they're just so good. And then, of course, I love Ichiro Suzuki and Dave Stieb. Just great, incredible, historic icons to the game. I'm so excited to talk about all of those players at a later date in different episodes. I'm just excited to get going. I was in debate making this podcast to make it more of a Blue Jays focus, just to sort of appeal to more of the Canadian demographic. But it got to the point where I just wanted to talk about so much about this sport that I did not want to bottleneck myself into just the Blue Jays, because I love tons of different teams. And I love underdog stories, and not all the time Blue Jays are underdogs. Things like this season with the Arizona Diamondbacks, them coming in, and the amazing season they've had amongst other teams and the different storylines they have. I just love all the teams in some different way. Of course, there are one or two that I do not like and despise, but we'll also talk about that on a later episode. And I'm actually almost more excited to talk about those teams. I'm just excited to have this avenue to talk about absolutely everything baseball related. The more exciting things like the teams, the key players, the historic moments, all the way to a little bit more specifics like fantasy baseball and how to get into it, card collecting and what to look out for, all the way to kind of the nitty gritty behind the scenes stuff of kind of baseball economics, umpiring, kind of the stuff that's a little bit less exciting to talk about, I'm excited to kind of make a little bit more approachable and give you guys some little knowledge on the sport. As someone who's in broadcast journalism, entering the journalism and broadcasting spaces in general, you're often told that sports is the toughest area to get into and one of the most competitive spaces to really find success in, because sports is just something across the board that is almost universally loved, and it's hard not to root for teams and root for players. So most people like sports in some capacity, in some shape or form. So it's tough to get into. And no matter what, I just wanted to make this podcast have an avenue for myself to be able to talk about it, to talk about just something that is so close and near and dear to my heart, to people who have the same exact passion for it and love it as much as I do. My goal at the end of the day with this podcast is to give something that provides good analysis, good information to experienced baseball fans, players, and people who just know the sport fairly well, all the way to giving more approachable angles and just making it easier for new people and new fans who want to get into the sport, just something a little bit easier to provide that information for, because sometimes getting into a new sport can be really, really intimidating. So I'm hoping that I can use this as a good little approachable space for people who want to get into it. Of course, there will be bias. It's impossible to get rid of, especially when it comes to sports, especially being a fan coming in of a particular team. It's going to be hard to get rid of, and I'm just going to say that right up front. I will do everything that I can to be very transparent about it and to still try and approach everything from different angles. That's one of the key things about less so being a broadcaster, but more so being a journalist in general is looking at both sides of the coin. And I'm excited to talk about teams that I like and why I like them, teams I don't like and why I don't like them. And at the end of the day, still talk about what they're doing well, what needs improvement from teams, players, everything like that. I just want to be fully transparent about it is going to be my goal at the end of the day. And that's pretty much it for the opening episode. I'm so incredibly excited to get going with this podcast. I'm planning on putting out new episodes weekly, so get ready for a ton of fun, awesome content. I'd also love to hear what you're thinking. If there are any particular topics you want to talk about, any players you'd like some analysis on, any parts or facets of the game that you just want explained a little bit differently or just want approached in a way, let me know, 100%. You can find me on socials on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and more at Justin A.J. Kohler. That's Justin A.J. Koehler. It's German. It's technically pronounced Kohler, but just for the sake of searchability, I say Kohler. I would just love to know anything you want to talk about or want me to talk about. Like I said, new episodes each week, so get pumped for plenty of content from yet another baseball podcast. Again, I'm Justin Kohler. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!